Hello and welcome to our first edition of the Monthly Mystical. I'm really excited about this. This is so cool. I just thought, bing, let's interview some amazing people across the planet with all their mystical and magical abilities and all the stuff that they've done in the past and hope to do in the future and all this sort of stuff. So it's totally random. Today we have Mr. Carl Dinsdale, who is a Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Modern Mixed Masons. And I'm very, very excited to interview him as my first guest. Hold on, let's admit him. Hopefully not as long as the last time, because we've had a few teething problems. So here we are. Are we in? We're in. Let me get my grid different. Oh, there he is. There we go. Yay! So we've had a few teething problems with our doing our interview. Hang on, let me just change the view to gallery. That's it. Here we go. There we are. Oh, and welcome, Mr. Carl Dinsdale. And I'm very, very pleased to have you on as my first guest in the Monthly Mystical. So, yes, let's get straight to the point. You are the founder, Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Modern Mixed Masons. How did it all begin, and why? Is the first question.
Why is probably the best place to start. It started in 2011. We actually consecrated it in 2011. The idea came in 2010. There was a group of about 25 couples who every fortnight, roughly, we would be going to a social of one or the other of us to raise money for charity or their lodge or whatever. So there was a group of about 50 of us, and always 30 or 40 of us were out every fortnight having a whale of a time and raising some money at the same time. And that was predominantly men and women. And the women were in the ladies' orders. There were 2 ladies' orders, and the men was in just one. UGLE, United Grand Lodge of
the United Grand Lodge of Grand Lodge of England, and then there's the ladies. There's a ladies side of it as well, isn't there? Which is just ladies only.
Yeah, there was 2. There was Order of Women Freemasons and Honourable Fraternity of Ancient Freemasons. Both ladies only, although both those started out as mixed orders in about 1908 and 1912. There was a mixed order. There was a couple of mixed orders, a very small one, but also a larger one, Le Droit Humain, which was international, very good. But I'll come back to that in a minute. A group of us got together. We couldn't work out why we could attend all these functions and raise lots and lots of money and have a good time together, but we couldn't work with each other in the lodge. And this struck us as rather odd. And over a few drinks, as you do, we said, we really must do something about this. And nothing really occurred until 2010 late on. And we formed a study group, because you are allowed to form a study group of men and women. UGLE won't throw you out for that. So that's what we did. And of course, that study group, we learned that we could actually exchange ideas and work together. So we said, why don't we take this to the next step of forming our own private lodge, discreet, away from all prying eyes, where men and women can meet as Freemasons, and nobody needs to know. The ladies will carry on being members of the ladies' orders. The men will continue to be members of the men's order. And that came about 10 years ago this month. And we kept it very quiet that way. And it was meant to keep quiet and just be that one lodge. But it went so well. We used to meet every fortnight, and it went so well. The inn where we met, it was like a bit of a bed and breakfast place, but it had a big back free room. spare room that they allowed us to set up all our lodge equipment for nothing, because we were dining afterwards, and you had a wonderful choice of menu and everything. And if you wanted to stay over, there were rooms there at a reasonable price. And we, as this carried on for 5 months and so on into 2012, into the middle of 2012, we said, this is mad. Why is it we can sit down afterwards and have a wonderful meal and have this fantastic camaraderie? And suddenly we discovered that because in Freemasonry, we were now working with both men and women, you had a different energy, a different dynamic. And we weren't paying anything for rent. We were having whatever meal we wanted off their menu. We didn't have to order it a week before, you know, and so on and so on. So gradually, of those original founders, everybody started leaving the men's and women's only orders and saying, I'm just going to concentrate on this new mixed order. And really over the next 4 years into 2015, there was a lot of debate. Do we just keep it on its own, a private thing that we just invited friends who were Freemasons to join, or do we spread? And eventually we decided, yes, we let it spread out. And 2013, we had another lodge, 2014, another, and then 2015, it just took off, where we added 4 lodges in a month of interested people who said, that's a good idea, we'd like to do that. So that's how it came about, and it was never planned. It really started over a lot of social events, and then we tried it out by just having a study group where we used to study the ritual and discuss it, and we found we actually enjoyed talking about Freemasonry as a mixed group, so we decided we'd work it. And that's where we started, probably at the first meeting with 12 or 15 attendees, and now we have, you know, 30 lodges, 800 members, with another 10 lodges to consecrate, you know, we've lodges to consecrate now in Spain, Portugal, Philippines, and Kenya, and then we'll probably have Australia, and then we've got all over the Indian Ocean. So it's fantastic. Crazy business.
Why? So why did you want to do that? What was the initial inspiration to get together, really?
Well, because we enjoyed each other's company, because we always went to socials together. Plus, we were sort of married or in partnerships together, and it seemed a bit strange that you both knew each other. You and your wife, your husband, your spouse, your partner knew each other, were Freemasons, but you couldn't work the ceremonies together. One had to traipse off to the ladies, and one had to traipse off to the men's. There was a big mixed order, a significant size anyway, Ledroit Umam, but unfortunately, they changed the rules so you didn't have to have a belief in God to be a member. You could say, no, I'm an atheist, and you could swear your obligation on the Book of Constitutions rather than a holy book of your choosing. And we were all pretty adamant that we thought that was a fundamental thing, so we couldn't join Ledroit Umam as a block, which was a great shame, because they do some fantastic ceremonies, great ritual, great people. It's just, that's just the way it is. They have a different outlook on who can join.
Yeah, different ethos. Yeah, that's, yeah. So, so when all this took off and everything, I mean, gosh, we've got let's talk about the pandemic. We don't want to talk about the pandemic, we want to talk about what happened, and it just went as far as I can gather, it went absolutely mental during the pandemic, and you actually got so much more from this like what we're doing now with the Zooms and everything, you've got so much more potential, and you spread the word so much more, right? And how did that even happen? I mean,
well, that was funny enough. I was on a call last night, and we were talking about how so many things had to happen out of our control that made a lot of our progress possible. And funny enough, you know me, I'm not very technical, and I'd never even heard of Zoom. And somebody mentioned it back in about February, jokingly saying, last year, saying, we'll all end up on this Zoom, and, nobody knew what it was. And we even had training sessions on it, run by one of our wonderful members who is far more technical, really did have training sessions. So we even knew how to log on, how to unmute ourselves, how to chat, all this nonsense. And it was incredible because we were approached about January, February last year by a number of interested brethren throughout the world. Now, and this included in France, Spain. How
did that come about? I mean, did they see you on the? I don't know.
They saw our Facebook groups, they saw our website, and one thing and another.
I suppose because everybody's scrolling, aren't they? They're just having a
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was, because everybody was sat at home bored to tears. Everybody must have scrolled through every most ridiculous minutiae of stuff that could have gone on because they were absolutely bored, rigid.
Yes.
So suddenly the traffic to everybody's side.
That's right. Yeah.
Fantastically. But we then got contacted. Now, we have, as I say, about 30 lodges, and then we work every degree worked in Europe. Every additional degree we work it, and we have several of them. We probably have about 80 or so additional degrees, not 80 individual different degrees, but 80 units working additional degrees. So you can imagine we were phenomenally busy. There is no way we could have handled all these inquiries from abroad and done all the work we needed to do in bringing founders up to speed and whatever else, had it not been for the pandemic. And even as far as sort of May and June last year, we didn't think it had actually happened. We thought this is nice and it's a bit of good practice for us.
Yeah.
It really won't take.
They thought it was going to be long, did they?
No. And then we got them to the stage where we were incredibly lucky in the Philippines. In a lot of the European places, we know contacts who are friendly with us or are involved in our order, and they helped us by doing the ceremonies for those lodges and individuals over there. We hadn't anybody in the Philippines, and then somebody very senior came along from another order, UGLE. You dare mention his name, he'd probably get shot, and introduced us to somebody who used to be involved in Australian Freemasonry, moved to the Philippines, was involved over there, and had a group of people who could then get all our founders ready.
Yeah.
Well, that was, and not only that, who also had and had been a master of about 8 additional degrees. So we were able to offer a wonderful package to these Filipinos and say, yeah, we can consecrate you, we can get you through your initiation, passing and raising, and then later in your Masonic careers, we've also got the additional degrees ready for you. And of course, we assisted over Zoom. We went and watched, and one thing and another. That was the most incredible piece of luck. 2 things. One, we suddenly had the time to literally spend 15 hours a week with them. Yeah. And that was just the time we spent with them. They then went and practiced all these ceremonies They were absolutely incredible, committed people who then every week, probably twice a week, held practice sessions of their own. We couldn't have done that had it not been that we're all sat at home, bored, rigid. We still held 2 or 3 Zoom meetings ourselves to keep our own members involved, but we were able to spend an awful lot of time with the Philippines, which meant come about late November, I think early December, we were able to consecrate the first 3 lodges in the Philippines, and that then went to 12 over the next, into the middle of this year, and with another 8 to do. And there's 300 members plus there now. There's more than 300, but there'll probably be, 400 by the end of this year, and Lord knows next year. So that they will have within the next 6 months about 20 lodges over there. But we couldn't have done it without that introduction to people who moved there, who were expats from Australia, from France, and had moved to retire in the Philippines, who were 30-year plus Masons.
Well, that was a bit of a stroke. Quite a stroke of luck. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. We were very lucky all the way through, because if you can imagine, starting from scratch, okay, we didn't need our own halls, which are killing the original established orders, because they can't afford to keep them running because of membership plummeting. Yeah. And the rooms all need fixing. Yeah. All right, they've had a good time while the pandemic's been on, because they haven't had to pay the staff or rates or anything, and they've had they've been able to claim all sorts of things from government, but we didn't have to sort out our own halls. We were able to rent places, and places were desperate to rent out. If you could have somebody meeting at your premises every month, at least every month, 15, 20, 25 people, and then they use the bar and any food facilities, places were falling over to let us use those places at a nominal rent. All we had to do is get all the Masonic furniture and the regalia. And again, we were desperately lucky that we had some wonderful connections of Freemasons, men and women, who had reached their 80s and so on, and could no longer attend regularly, and they wanted to help out, and they funded that initial flow of regalia and furniture of our first few lodges, first 3 lodges anyway, first 4 lodges, and then our first 7 lodges. They virtually bankrolled 8 or 9 people virtually bankrolled those 7 lodges, getting all the equipment and regalia and all the additional degrees. I mean, you've seen the regalia; it goes from the sublime to the ridiculous, and it ain't cheap. And so we were lucky again. In there were people that believed in what we were doing, who came along and said, I can't attend much anymore, but what I have got is a stack of money, hundreds and running into thousands. That we couldn't have done it that quickly and that well without their blessing and help. Yeah, and funny enough, 10 years on, they're all gone. They've all passed over. The last of them died this year, and they were the wonderful people that really it's their legacy, because we couldn't have done it without them.
Well, I would quite like it if you could quickly text me with the names of those founders, and we can maybe put them on the end of the interview, if that's all right with you. Yeah. If not, then if it's too much, it's not appropriate, then that's fine. Obviously, there's the privacy.
I have to ask their permission, and we should do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
but I have the list, but I wouldn't publicise it outside our order, really.
No problem. But yeah, that's a lovely, amazing thing. So where are you seeing the future? The future, I mean, God, it's already flying, isn't it? It's I think,
well,
from my point of view, I think that this is the way of the future. And well, I think that certain things. Oh, there is one question I'd sort of flying into that. There was an interview. I've got to ask about the interview. There was an interview with a member of the I don't know. I didn't watch the interview. I've just heard about it. It was with a certain member of the UGL, the UGLE, who said that, oh yes, anybody can become a Mason. Blah blah blah. We have men Masons and we have women Masons, and yes, anybody is welcome to join. I'd just quite like to ask you what your opinion on that is, because
it's difficult. They're going through a very expensive, and have been for years, because of the decimation of the membership, into a PR exercise of saying the right thing and suddenly saying, oh, there are mixed orders as well. What they don't tell you is if you go anywhere near them as a member of UGLE, you'll be expelled.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like you've got a favorite Indian restaurant that you go to every Monday night. And just as you're leaving one night, the owner comes up to you and says, oh, I saw you at the Chinese on Wednesday. You mustn't eat in there. If you're going to eat in here, you mustn't eat in the Chinese as well. Well, it's utter nonsense. And the younger people can't understand the distinction.
No.
And the separation. But, so, the interview says one thing, but actually behind the scenes, they're expelling people for even having anything to do with mixed masonry. They expel one just today. So timely interview. Yeah, and it's so I wouldn't believe all that's put across at face value. You have to dig into it. There will be some people who prefer single-sex masonry, and that's absolutely fine.
That's up to them. Yeah, that's quite right.
I do not see any reason why, if a person is in a single-sex masonry and they want to be a mixed as well, they can't go and do that on a different night, nothing to do with it. Yeah. Not saying they're then going to bring their partner along to the single-sex one. No, keep it completely separate. Yeah. Maybe that'll come in time. That's really up to them. That there's not many clubs left where they bar people just because of the sex, and maybe that will change too. That's up to them.
Yeah.
They need the money. They need the money, bless them.
The other thing I wanted to say is that you include everybody in your modern mixed masons. This isn't just men and women. From my interpretation, you include all people from from other communities, like for instance, if you're lesbian, gay, the all that sort of, so all those sort of people. So can you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, it's difficult to say much about it, other than because this was started up in the north, and it was quite, obviously politics are very separate from religion, but it just so happened that within the original founders, there were people of very strong opinions on these matters. We tried to create it so it's a very safe space. And to be fair to all other orders, they will tell you that they accept everybody from the LGBTQ plus community. But however, when you get down to a local lodge level, it can be quite a different feeling that many of our members that were in those single-sex organisations can testify to. That's not the fault of the orders themselves. It is, individuals at lodge level. But we made it very clear that people would have to sign that up as one of the principles, and no deviation from that would be tolerated. And we have, over the 10 years, lost very senior people that just couldn't quite stick to that, and down the road they go. You know, it's you get people with phobias in every walk of life, and you know, luckily we're a very young organisation, and it's something that seems to be much more accepted, and it's just life and just normality. It's not an issue, it's not even a talking point. The younger really. You get in age groups now,
right.
And that's good. That's how it should be, you know.
Yeah, so going forward, I mean, obviously with the LGBTQ, I can never say it right, plus community, it's going to be amazing for them if they, you know, if they want to come and join. And it's not just like my personal opinion. Moons ago, when I was a waitress, I used to waitress on a Saturday evening and do many Mason do, and then like, you know, you'd serve them all their posh food and then you would have to leave the room, etc. And I found that it was all elderly people, and you know, people of, you know, higher class, etc. That's how my interpretation was at the time, in my young days of being a waitress. But now my interpretation seems to be that like, especially with your GLMMM, is that everybody can come, and you know, obviously you can come and be a Mason, and it's not restrictive. Do you think that hopefully in the future there will be a lot younger members? That's what I'm trying to get at, is that there will be younger members rather than just older people, which is kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, it never was an older person thing. It was never an elitist thing. To a degree, you know, you would have weavers and whole traditions involved. So I don't know how that came about evolving that way. Perhaps as they moved into their own halls and things became more and more expensive, perhaps that's how it got there. I don't know. But I know all orders are desperate to rebalance that and get younger people in, because it does bring a different energy and a different ethos. So good luck to everybody that's trying to do that. I think that the one thing that helps us is most of our lodges, your annual membership is about £80 a year. Now, when I was in UGLE more than 10 years ago now, you would be looking at, you know, £150, £200 a year membership for each of your lodges. Then, so it must probably be about £300 now, and that's because they have their own halls to keep upkeep and so on. We don't have that, and we're still very lucky in that the 10 years we've been going, we receive thousands and thousands in voluntary donations, that, you know, enables us to do things without hitting every time individuals. You know, we don't have a head office in London with hundreds of staff on salaries, pensions, whatever. We don't have halls there, you know, that, you know, it's a different way, I suppose. You start where we started, and we were lucky. I think most orders now, if they were to start again, wouldn't have their own halls. In fact, that's not where Freemasonry started. It started in the upstairs rooms of taverns, of inns, of restaurants.
Right. Yeah.
And perhaps, you know, a lot of it, including the single sex orders, will go back to that. Yeah, but you know, that's where we've been fortunate in everybody can afford it, because you can even pay that over 12 months, you know, and pay £7 a month or whatever for your membership. It makes a tremendous difference. And with the pandemic being gone and being in a fortunate position with our money, we just cancelled all the fees for the entire year. You know, whereas friends of ours that were in other orders were expected to pay their membership fees, and you know, and the lodges were expected to pay the rents, and they hadn't met for 20 months. And that's quite a hard blow. The hard thing about going forward will be to see how many lodges remain upstanding, how many members do. And we won't know that until some of our lodges haven't met again yet. Some started in May, moving forward. Most have met again, and that's great. But some of ours will meet this month for the first time. And, you know, not all lodges will survive because people lost people in the pandemic. People moved away, people are in different circumstances, and people got out of the habit of going to the lodge. It is a habit forming you know, pastime, and people have got out of that habit. And unfortunately, some have said, well, I've used this as a time to call it a day. And the same with their golf club membership, the same with their walking membership, with their choir membership, also sports membership. A lot of people have said, well, I've changed what I do now. So, you know, really we have to regroup and say, right, who's left standing, and then move forward.
Forward from that, yeah. So if you were to give any insight on what a young person or anybody would, how would they, first of all, how would they learn about Freemasonry? What would you, maybe what's your top 3 books, or do you have any information that you can give them if they wanted to come and explore Freemasonry?
Well, to be fair, you know, orders like United Grand Lodge of England have produced fantastic booklets about this sort of stuff. You know, obviously, with an order that size, what they put in the booklet doesn't always reflect at an individual lodge. That's not their fault. But there's plenty of stuff on the internet to read from reputable sources and to ask about. And virtually every website has a Q&A where you can interact. That's where I would go. I'm always desperately careful that there's no dogma, or shouldn't be any dogma in Freemasonry. So you have to be very careful that somebody doesn't say to you, this is what Freemasonry is about. In fact, if anybody ever says that to you, you should walk in the opposite direction. You know, every order should have a set of tenets, a set of grounding principles, such as a belief in a supreme being, accepting everybody equally, regardless of orientation, of sex, so on and so, disability, etc., etc. Religion, creed, color, whatever. And then after that, you work through ceremonies, and you have a set of guiding principles that will help you become hopefully a better person, a better family member, a better friend, a better member of society, so on and so on. But you have to work that through. It's each individual is being worked upon within Freemason. So if somebody ever says this is what it's all about, it's a bit spooky. So I'm not into books. Books give their versions on how to view and understand this particular ceremony, and that's brilliant.
Right, yeah.
But no, I would look all over the web and other places and see and ask about and see what suits you. If it's men only, women only, mixed, whatever. You know, it's how you want to pursue your Freemasonry. And not only that, you can step back out of them at any time and move to another, I'm sure.
Exactly, yeah.
We have an enormous amount of UGLE, ex-UGLE members, because they can't afford to stay in that anymore, and they want to continue the Freemasonry, and they do it perhaps together with the partner, with us. But so be it. That doesn't make one right or one wrong.
So do you think it's so Masonry in a nutshell? What would say in one sentence? What is to you the GLMMM? Can you do that in one sentence? I don't know.
Well, I hope it's open to all who can agree with our founding principles, and it's tolerant. It's full of integrity of its members. There's kindness shown there, and we do a lot of charity work. Organisations like the United Grand Lodge of England, you can call them what you want, but they do a phenomenal amount for charity. Well, all Freemasons do. If you take it by size, they do, but incredible amount. And they look after their own members, and we've had to do during this pandemic. Times have been hard for a lot of people. Not everybody, unfortunately, was able to be supported by some of the government schemes. Some people fell between different schemes, and that's where, we're able to look after and help out. And that's, I think, inclusive and tolerant, kind, charitable. That's not a bad way to be.
That's brilliant. Well, Mr. Carl Dinsdale. Oh, one more thing I just wanted to say. You have your own name on your own lodge in the Philippines, I understand.
Yes. Yeah, that normally only happens when you're dead, so it was quite a shock request.
Just
to be
quickly
fair,
come about before we finish, because I really wanted to mention that before we went.
Yeah, well, we, in truth, it was utterly mad from about March, April through to December last year, where we were on with our Philippine brethren, 5 Zooms a week, and they'd go away and practice it all, and then we'd come back and we had to get all the paperwork right, everything right. You wouldn't ever want to do it again, although it's brilliant, but we could only do it because we're all locked up. And then a new lodge was being created, and they said, we want to call it this. And of course, you're flabbergasted. Then you said, well, actually, normal protocol is you do that when somebody's dead. I said, I hope you're not tempting fate. So that was rather beautiful. And I'm in touch with them, and I Zoom into all their meetings if I can. And hopefully that'll be the first lodge I go and visit when I get over there next year. Yes, so that was special, but a bit embarrassing, but very, very nice. And it was very good because my best friend actually was a consecrating officer for it. And they allowed me, I think, to deliver the address to the brethren at the end of it. So it was a wonderful day. Yeah, it was. We do nice things in this. We're very lucky because the beautiful thing about any Freemasonry is you can have your family member or a very close friend do a ceremony for you if you're lucky. Well, we've got the added bonus of your spouse or your partner or a father can initiate his daughter, or mother can initiate a son or vice, whatever. We've got that added thing, so it is rather nice that way. Special.
It is special. That's amazing. Mr. Carl Dinsdale, thank you so much for being my first magical mystical guest. And yes, thank you. I'm very grateful to you. And hopefully there'll be more. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. Lovely talking to you. See you soon.
Yes, I'll let you get on now. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Mr. Carl Dinsdale. Wow, what a performance. That was just lovely. Great interview. Oh, it's just awesome. Hopefully subscribe to me, subscribe to the Magic Toolbox. You will find us, and you will find bits on I'll have a website, etc. So if you ever want to listen to some more interviews, and there's some really good ones coming up, we do the monthly mystical, and there's some other stuff going on. So subscribe or comment, and give me a comment and see what did you think of this interview. And I hope to see you all very soon. I'll see you all later. Bye from the Magic Toolbox.